Okay, maybe to start, what's your name and your function? Oh, yeah, your function in here, your position, we say, I don't know. But
Yeah,
can you present yourself?
yeah, my name's Pandora Patterson, and I'm the tour coordinator at Kailash Ecovillage.
What is this Ecovillage?
It is a community, it's an apartment complex built in the late 50s, and two people who want to do like a sustainable experiment bought it. And their idea was they want to make an intentional community of people who are interested in sustainable living.
For instance, for example, of sustainable activities.
Oh, right. So we have a lot of different projects on the property. We have a couple of composting courtyards where we do composting of kitchen scraps and yard waste. We've got a human manure composting courtyard. We have one that's called the urination station where we're collecting fertilizer for the garden. And let's see, we have a rainwater cistern. We have rainwater catchment off of the roof. We're basically catching all of our rainwater that falls on the property. So on the roof, and then we have grates that go across the driveway. And it's a few of them anyway.
And this is the ecological part, but there also is a social part in this project. Can you explain me?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's very interesting. I've never lived in a place like this where everybody gets to know everybody else. So I know, all of the other 50 or 60 people who live here. And we do really kind of communicate on Google Groups and by getting together in gatherings. We have potlucks. Sometimes we have a movie night.
I guess the rental are lower than the ones in Portland Center also.
The rent here is pretty reasonable. Yeah, actually. There's a few other communities in Portland that are more of where you buy a condo. And so in that case, you're purchasing property, but the owners here wanted to do a rental model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you tell me where we are exactly? What do I see? I see bikes and garden around. Well, we see it, but can you explain it to me?
Yeah. So this is, we call it the bike barn. It parks around 100 bikes. Or it used to. We just changed the structure of how we park. And then what you're seeing out here are the individual garden plots. So we have about 40 people here who garden. And there's over 40 garden plots. We also have a large garden area that's for the group garden where we all get together, plant, and harvest the food.
Mm-hmm. This is really ecological conscious, which we don't really know in Europe. That, well, of course there are, but you prove American are also eco-conscious. Do you imagine this is something that can surprise in Europe?
I think it could catch on. There's a lady that stopped by that did. She wrote a book about eco-villages, and she actually went around the world. And some of those places were in Europe that she did visit some ecological communities that were in Europe actually.
Yeah. I mean, what you are doing here is like something you would love to see maybe spread in a more global at a bigger level in the country, which is which stays one of the biggest, one of the most polluting country in the world. Well, how do you feel about that? Like, I mean, this is such an idealistic project in maybe the most polluting country in the world, the less ecological one. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'd love to see this idea grow. And I think if a lot more people could experience kind of the feeling of knowing the people around you and the feeling of having an organic garden right here where you can just go and pick your salad, you know, I think that idea would catch on.
Yeah, this model is like something small, but I mean towards like the big agriculture industry and stuff like that. How do you feel about that? Are you still idealistic, positive thinking when you know how America is in this topic?
Yeah, there's a lot of large agriculture and a lot of factory farming. I don't like to see that. I don't think it's quite as sustainable as this is. We practice what we call veganic gardening, and so we try not to use a lot of animal products when we're gardening. We try to use natural fertilizers and no pesticides.
Are you autosufficient in here?
You know, we're not self-sufficient. So I don't think there's enough property to grow food for 60 people. And so we all do go to the grocery store. We have solar panels on the roof, but we don't have enough for the whole community. It's just enough to cover like the lights and the laundry room, that kind of thing. Now we do collect enough water to water the gardens, so that part is self-sufficient.
Do you feel this is this kind of small thing that can make the people more sensitive about the ecological consciousness and so on? Like this is spreading this kind of way of life in the well, for sure in Portland and around, because that's an eco city, but at a national level, could it be, I guess you hope, once something like more the rule than the exception?
Yeah, it's nice because we get a lot of people coming from different places, all over the country, some other countries, and when they come here, we give them a tour and they can kind of see what this kind of lifestyle would be like. And so that's kind of part of our community outreach program, and it feels really good to share just a little piece of that feeling. You don't really know until you come and live here, you know, what it's like. But that is part of our model, is to share, definitely share what we're doing. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, that's good. So how are the tomatoes? Are they good?
These are not mine, but I planted some little orange cherry tomatoes that were good.
Really?
Yeah.
And so can you maybe repeat it to me, but being here, every resident gets his own part of the garden, right?
Yeah, some of the people have, about probably 40 of the 60 people here have are gardeners of some sort, whether they have an individual garden plot or whether they participate in the big group garden. Yeah, we do have a lot of gardeners.
Perfect. Tell me, I just forgot to ask you this question. Why is Portland the ecological capital of the United States? You know, we say that.
Yeah, that is a good question. I mean, I know we have the TV show Portlandia and people get all kinds of ideas from that, but we did some of the first innovations as far as the bicycle pathway structure. So we were kind of ahead of the gate on that. Now some other cities are passing us up. And then I know we got a big award, I think it was last year, for Portland, like the most ecological city. And I think it's just the attitude here. You know, everybody, is really open to recycling and open to trying some new sustainable things in their life. So, yeah, everywhere you go, you meet someone that has that sort of interest. So it's nice. If you wanna live a sustainable life, then this is a nice place to do it.
also more bikers than car drivers, almost in the city.
Yeah, yeah. Our percentage of bicycle commuters is pretty high, one of the highest in the country here.
Great. And yeah, so because this is busy time for the election to come, of course, we know this is a, well, progressive place, this West Coast mostly, and I guess for the ecological topic as well. I wanted to ask you what would the environment, well, this is generally speaking, but be or look like in the United States if the Trump was elected? Do you fear that? Are you scared about that?
Yeah, I am. I don't think he's particularly interested in, keeping toxins out of our air and water and, keeping the same protections for the Environmental Protection Agency. He's more of a big business guy. I don't think he's here to help the little guy. So, I would be afraid he would loosen up the rules a little bit. Here in Portland, we had something recently in that some of our air and water and the soil was contaminated because of some glass factories that were in town, in fact, not too far from here. And that was a big surprise because we didn't really realize we didn't have anybody watching out for that. So now they've put, some restrictions on the factory, and, as soon as we found out some action was taken, and especially the citizens, the people in the neighborhood, the mothers with kids, they were getting out saying, no, you can't do this anymore. And so that's getting cleaned up pretty quick. And I would really hate to have somebody come in to be president and loosen up all those restrictions. In other cities, I don't think it's quite as easy to get, things cleaned up, or, there's not going to be as many people marching in the streets, or, going to the press conference.
Is not reassuring you about this kind of thing that could happen again? You mean like the example you just
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be reassuring to me at all. And the current administration, has put a lot of acreage in national forest to preserve that for generations to come. What will the next president do? Whoever it is, if it's Trump, I don't think he'd be interested in doing that. Yeah.
He also a big thing. He also already.
Oh, it's a Hummer. It's so cute.
He wants to be interviewed as well. Maybe I can ask him. But he told already that if he was the next president, he would put back in question the recent Paris Accord, Paris Agreement about climate. What do you feel about that? Like this was such a big deal and achievement for Obama to have agreed on this COP21 Paris thing.
Yeah.
And he would maybe throw it all away. This is scaring us, but I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, Trump doesn't believe in man-made climate change. He's stated that. So, he could probably reverse all kinds of things.
Yeah. So this is for you the most anti-ecological president you could ever get.
Yeah, one of the worst ones I've seen in a long time. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, and maybe this is for well, maybe I can ask you later because I'm not sure about the question of the audience made a question but not that clear. I can maybe let you a bit and see with them what they want to tell me.
My name is Martha Shepard, and I've lived here at Kailash Ecovillage for 5 years.
I'm Grant Nelson, and I've been here for about a month and a few days.
a long time ago and just arrived.
Yeah.
Why do you live here?
Well, I was a hippie in my younger days, and this is a very unique setting for an urban area like Portland. And it was a good transitional place for me when I retired and before I decided what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
And you? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. Was she done yet? Okay. Well, I came here for the part of getting more experience living in a community and possibly, well, learning more sustainable living.
Yeah. So.
Plus ecological living, I guess.
So what would be the guidelines of your ecological way of life here?
Guidelines.
Well, your big principles, or you know, guidelines or something like
Yeah.
like the big lines of what you believe in and what you're doing in here towards your beliefs. Maybe.
Well, for me, the gardening is growing your own food. I mean, that's pretty number one for this. And for an urban area, having this much green space to grow our own food. The other thing that is the other part of this experiment is the composting, the recycling aspect is much more intense than you could get in any kind of apartment setting. I like to put my clothes out on the line, and unless I owned my own house, I probably couldn't do that in an urban area like Portland.
What about you?
Well, for me, I was going more for pretty much trying to live as sustainably as possible, maybe minimalistic also. Working with groups of people, trying to get to know people more than just...
Slow down.
Yeah, instead of just the standard way of living, which is go to job, come home.
Is this a kind of ideal you have here, and maybe at this level, but you would love to see it bigger, or how do you live this kind of ideal? I don't know if I make me understand well.
I think Portland is a good example of how out of whack some things are. I've lived in Oregon my whole life. I was born here, and right now they're building bigger and bigger and bigger one-person one-family homes. So this, I think, is the other side of the spectrum. We're trying to live closer and I think use less. And the apartments are 565 square feet. It's not some 3,000 square foot house for 3 people.
It puts also the average American way of life in question. What you are doing living in here, right?
It's showing the difference between a way of life that really needs to exist and one that is, you could say shouldn't, or well, it is. What?
Okay. What about how do you live? But I will ask you, as ecological people, the election to come. What's your thought about it?
Well, I'm not voting for Trump, I'll say that. I'm not that thrilled with Hillary Clinton either, but there aren't many options at this point. I don't think...
You told me, sorry, you won't vote?
I won't vote for Trump.
Neither Clinton?
I will vote for Clinton only because she's the lesser of two evils. It would be nice in America if we ever got to the point of not voting for the lesser of two evils, but it has rarely happened in my lifetime of voting, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. What about yours?
Yeah, well, it's about the same. I'm not thrilled with the choices that we have for this election. Probably leaning away from Trump.
Because of the...
and- Oh, because of, yeah, but of course, because, well, he's not very consistent with anything of what he talks about. He literally keeps changing his mind. He also, well, I would say, talks about, well, quite a few different topics that most people don't really want to hear, or...
More business than ecology, for instance. What do
Yeah.
you think about that?
He's more business. Plus, he's well, motivated by companies and also by whatever I guess comes his way in some ways. He kind of
Money
speaks,
and power.
yeah, he speaks his mind or so with whatever happens to be thrown at him.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think about it? Like we know he is not even, as Pandora reminded me, is not even well, he doesn't believe in climate change. How do you feel? How could a president rule the United States not believing in climate change? In one of the most polluting countries in the world, again.
He's an idiot. What can we say? I mean, truly, I think he's an idiot.
Yeah, that would be the end world. Thank you very much. Hi, Marta. Can you tell me about your footprint?
I would say I'm an omnivore, probably in the way that Michael Pollan presented in his book, The Omnivore's Dilemma. I live around a lot of people that are vegan or vegetarian, and I was a vegetarian for 5 or 6 years, so I kind of get all of it, but my choice has been to be an omnivore.
Mm-hmm. How do you think America is eco-conscious in it all? This Belgian people, this Belgian person thinks if you continue in that way, this is gonna be the apocalypse.
I think it is hard for a country as big as America to sustain, to have a sustainability with just meat-based diet. But the other thing is, America's a big country, and there's a lot of diversity, and there's a lot of space still in America. So it's one of those dichotomies of diverse people agreeing on one sort of diet. I don't see it happening. Whether it would be apocalyptic, I don't think it would be.
Can you, for instance, repeat to me? This is, of course, a question of division. There are people in the example of this Oregon country, the East Coast. Well, this is not a coast, but the east part is more maybe less eco-conscious than here around Portland.
Right. And I was born and raised in Eastern Oregon, which is drier, and it's not as green, it's deserty, and then there's mountains, and there's a lot of wheat ranchers and a lot of cattle ranchers, cowboys, Indians, and perhaps they are not as conscious or willing to make that kind of change, because for some of them, that's their livelihood.
Eating meat.
Yeah, they're cattle ranchers.
Here you don't really eat. Here it's not that you don't eat meat, but for sure a lot less.
Yeah, I definitely think that in this particular place, I mean, it's an Ecovillage, and there really are big issues about sustainability and whether you have a plant-based or a meat-based diet.
Mm-hmm. And you already answered to that question there, but I will repeat it to have it now. So if the the cowboy of the east part of the Oregon eat a lot of meat. What's your diet habit?
I don't eat meat for every meal. There are days I don't eat meat. And living here, I have definitely learned how to prepare meals without meat. You know, I know how to do that, but I think there are some people, it would be a very big learning curve to learn how to prepare meals and eat without meat. I think the traditional American diet has always been meat-based, and I think to change that would take a lot of learning.
Okay, perfect. That's actually what I wanted. This is perfectly summarized. Thank you.